The following program is a Town of Colonie television production of the William K. Sanford Town Library.
Welcome to Albany County News. I'm Mary Rozak. In the next half hour, we're going to be talking about something that has been in the news lately. You've probably been warned about phishing scams when you check your email. You've been warned about not clicking on things, not opening things, attachments that you aren't expecting. Well, the city of Albany was attacked, and ransomware is the word. And so that's what we're going to talk about today as part of our look at Albany County, and our Chief Information Officer is going to help us navigate those very murky waters. We have Perry Blanchard with us. Welcome, Perry.
Thank you. Good to be here.
It's one of the departments, as on Albany County News, we focus on all of the departments. And, it's one of the departments that we have not talked about before, because when it comes to IT, you really, you think about, or as the county calls it, Information Services, IS, you're thinking about, the systems that are particular to the county. So it would seem that maybe viewers would not have been interested in that. But because of what's gone on, particularly with the city of Albany, I knew that that would be a hot topic. So before we get into that, let's just talk a little bit about how you got to Albany County, because you are the Chief Information Officer.
Right.
You have been with Albany County for years.
31 years.
You've been for a very long time, a lot of experience.
Right.
How did you get into information services? Tell us a little bit about your background and your schooling.
Out of college, got the opportunity to have a computer programmer job, position on the mainframe computer way back when. There was no PCs, there were no servers, it was just a big mainframe. So I programmed on that for about 9 years, and then the opportunity came across where the county was going to transition from mainframe to the modern PC server-based systems. So I took that opportunity to try out networking and operating systems, and back then IT security was really nothing that was thought about, but it was of interest. I loved it and stayed with it.
Let's talk about, there are going to be some people who don't understand some of the terminology. So way back when computers and this technology first started, the term mainframe.
Right. When
you're talking about mainframe, tell us what you actually are talking about.
Sure. It was one huge computer that was probably less powerful than a modern PC. They used dumb terminals that were connected by coax throughout the county. Everything was on that system. So our payroll systems, our civil service systems, our tax systems were all programmed and maintained on that one big box. It was an IBM server that you wouldn't see that today.
And so when you're talking about terminals, they weren't computers. They were just windows into that.
Right. They had no memory. They had no hard drives. They just were a window right to that.
But back then, everybody thought that was the greatest thing.
That was it. Right.
I can almost liken it to when I was in college, when we had, you had a typewriter when I was in high school, then you had an electric typewriter, and then all of a sudden there were these terminals, and everyone was doing things, and being able to use and access something was connected to something else. So I can't even remember how long that kind of existed.
We started to transition early to mid-90s.
Okay.
I think we fully came off the mainframe around the year 2000. Our last systems, our financial system, went to PC-based, server-based, and that was the last system that we had.
So when we say, or when you say the mainframe, it was terminals were connected to that. But people I know, if you work in a company, they still think there is a bank of something somewhere.
Right.
There still is, but we don't call it a mainframe.
Right. There was a transition to server-based applications. So there was a time when we would have had maybe 150 physical servers, and each server, one might have been the financial system, one might have been timekeeping. Each server hosted an application. Now in the modern world, we use virtualization. So we're back to less servers. Now we have 6 big servers that maintain all of our applications. That's
Well,
virtualization.
we're always
kind
talking
of going
about-
back to that same.
Yeah, it sounds
theory.
like it. But but space has got to be an issue, because I know we're always
Right.
talking about space, even our own computers, our own laptops, how much space you have.
Correct. We have to store all of the county's data, including employees' files, the financial data, the timekeeping data. And as you know, in Albany County, we have many systems. We have a jail, we have public works, we have a health facility, mental health. That's a lot of different types of data that we have to store and secure, back those up. So not only do we have the primary server, but we also have to back up that data to another site.
So how big, for people who are at home, how big are we talking about? Do we have rooms of this stuff? Do we have...
No, we actually have 6. We have our 6 huge hosts and some other physical servers that are on that, and then we have 2 big storage systems. The county maintains about 150 terabyte of data. We purchased storage about 2 years ago, and hopefully that'll keep us going for another 5 years.
Now, what I'm trying to picture, 150 terabytes sounds like a lot, but isn't when you get an external hard drive, if you go like to a Best Buy or something, don't you see 1 or 2 or 3 terabytes?
Exactly. So sometimes we have to wrestle with what data is current, what data needs to be kept anymore, so we work with the departments to archive that data.
That's got to be, there are 22 departments, that's got to be quite a challenge to
It is.
maintain that.
It is. The departments work with us well. We have implementation specialists, which are like business analysts within the county that work with each department out of my department.
Did you grow up knowing that you wanted to do something scientific, you wanted to do something with numbers, you wanted to do, I mean, how did you know? Were you a technical person always?
Honestly, I was not. I was not. Back in the 80s when I was a teen, there was not smartphones. You couldn't necessarily afford a personal computer at that time. They were very hard to obtain. They're very expensive. When it was time to graduate from high school, it was one of the few things that interested me at the time, and once I went into it, I loved it. Everything's a challenge. Technology continues to evolve, so thinking back from a mainframe to what we are now, it's continuously evolving. You have to keep up on it. You continuously have to educate yourself to be successful.
We'll talk about more about that in just a little bit. But one can imagine that with 2,500 plus employees in the county, that this has got to be something that, I mean, this is a big job. How many people approximately are in the information services realm?
We have 26 people in our department that support all the physical sites and all the business entities within the county.
And so those are broken down. I know you said there are some programmers.
Correct.
Talk a little bit
Sure.
about that.
We have, as you said, the programmers. We have implementation specialists. We have our technicians, which is the help desk role that our first line of defense or support. And
When I call and you say, my password's not working, I need some help being reset.
Absolutely. And they do a great job. And then we have our senior network technicians that are a little on the higher level of more experience that take care of our servers and our network, our security, et cetera.
So you're talking about, you mentioned security, which is probably a good segue into security issues that we've read about and heard about
Sure.
with the city of Albany. Tell me a little bit about what ransomware actually is, because they admitted that they had been attacked by ransomware.
Sure. Ransomware is a type of malware, obviously, and it's probably the biggest, hottest current type of malware that there is right now. Very difficult to defeat. Typically comes in from an email, a phishing email, where the user might open an attachment or click on a link that contains malware. Typically, they take hold of a system that might not be patched or could be patched, and that exploits something called a 0-day, something that is not patched yet, and there's no patch for it. Very common.
Patch being something that would be able to stop any breach.
Sure, exactly. And another way is if they compromise credentials. So if they get a hold of my password, so say I may click on a link and it might look like a password reset portal, like Office 365, Google Mail. I'll put my credentials in, thinking that it's actually that correct entity, and it's not. So then they capture my credentials. So between having the malware on the workstation or a server and my credentials, they can use that to encrypt data. So by encrypting data, makes the data on your systems unreadable without a key to unencrypted data. So this is where ransomware comes in. So once they encrypt the data, they send a pop-up to the host and demand money. And once the ransom is paid, they'll unencrypt your data.
So the computer then, the only message that would come up would be a ransom
Right,
message.
typically a big red banner or any type of banner saying your files have been encrypted. There's so many variants of it. It could be any type of message, but it's all the same common theme.
So we have not heard what the city of Albany, number one, how it happened. There's an
Correct.
investigation going on, nor how they responded to that in terms of whether they paid or found some other means. Tell us the options. What do you have? I mean, as an
Besides
option.
paying?
Besides paying.
Correct.
I mean, is there an option?
The biggest friend you have if you have ransomware are good backups. Typically, this is how most organizations recover. Very few pay. Some do pay, but having good backups to restore your systems is key. We maintain our backups. We try to verify our backups. We're always thinking about different ways to secure the backups. And obviously, with what happened to the city, it has us looking again.
We're going to talk about, for those we're talking about at larger scale, we're talking about businesses and governments now. We'll talk individuals momentarily. But when you say have good backups, you have a redundancy. How, when you have a backup, I guess we should explain, it's not in any way, shape, or form immediately connected to that initial,
Correct.
that initial server.
Correct.
Right?
So it takes time from those backups, and typically you need what's called an offline backup. An online backup, many times they get encrypted themselves, so you can't restore from an encrypted backup. So maintaining offline backups that you can restore a system to is key. An organization will have a disaster recovery plan to decide what systems are restored first. Typically financials. You want to pay your employees. That's key. Anything that keeps main facilities running, whether it's what's called a SCADA system, like a water department, in our case, it'd be our jail, our health systems. We'd want to get them back up and running first. So we have to prioritize what gets restored.
Now, I know that both the state and Albany County, and probably there are other entities, we do a lot of business and interact a lot with the city of Albany. Were there any fears that somehow we might be compromised by emails or anything else?
Sure. The city notified us of their attack pretty quickly. So with that, the fact that we do have some interconnectivity with our business and our network and with the state, we proactively started to shut things down, that connectivity, and we organized our team. That was that weekend, and proactively made sure we were patched, started running scans for malware, watching what's called logs to make sure we don't see any traffic that we couldn't identify. Took many measures. And the city was great. We worked with them as well to make sure from their side that they shut down what they could to us. And they've been working with us to bring back systems.
So I'm sure that while the investigation goes on, that the city is probably keeping things pretty close to the vest right now. So I won't assume that you have inside information. But from the outside, as you're looking at their response and how their systems have come up and what may or may not be available, what's your take on how well this may have been handled?
My take on it is that they've done a great job. I know some systems were up Monday and Tuesday right after the attack. The attack came out in the press on Saturday. So to have some systems back Monday and Tuesday, in my perspective was very good. Other cities like Atlanta and other big cities and counties, sometimes it's weeks before systems are back, and then months before everything is recovered. So that says to me the city may have done a great job with their backups and their response.
Well, I've got to say personally that, when I ever got, I think it was at sometime early Saturday, I got the email
Right.
that was sent saying, to be extra careful. And I did have emails that had come from the city the night before.
Right.
So I immediately did reach out to those folks and say, I need to know if you sent me an email, what you sent me, because I need to know if I'm going to be able to open it, and I'm going to have to be able to instruct IT to take a look at it.
Correct response.
If there was something that was
Right.
going to be done. So that was very, very quick on our part. Or have things been restored on our end at this point with the connectivity?
Yes, throughout the last 2 weeks, we've turned most of the components back on. They access some systems on our side. We've allowed some access to that, and vice versa. So these systems, I believe, are fully restored now.
Okay. Well, barring having, as we're talking about ransomware and do you pay or do you not pay, barring having a strong backup system, you have no choice, right?
Right. There's many things you can do proactively. Well, first of all, it's education. Security awareness training, to me, is primary, and that's really coming to the forefront. Educating yourself, educating your employees. At Albany County, we use a system called KnowBe4, as you know. We offer training throughout the year, and we also do phishing tests. Our response to the city's attack was to make our phishing tests even harder, take advantage of that situation to educate our users. So if they continue to click on a link or open attachment through our tests, it'll tell them what they did wrong. And then we get notified of what they did wrong as well. And we can help them remediate that if they continue to do the same thing over and over.
Sure. So it tells them immediately.
Yes.
I can say this because I proudly, up until this point, knock wood, I've been really good about
You have done well.
making sure that I've sent what I think
Right.
are not valid emails. I've sent them to what we have a special email to send them
Right.
to, or I've just deleted them because sometimes I know I
Right.
don't want to inundate. If I know I'm looking at something and I know that it's definitely not right. But it actually will pop up and show you that you've made an error and you would have been caught?
Correct.
Wow.
Correct. So it educates the users on what to look for, which we can talk about as well.
Now, I know we did, I'm trying to think, has it been almost a year now? Or at some point last year, I know employees all went through these special tests that you could do it on your own, on your computer.
Right.
But you had to go through, let's talk about that, the security challenges.
Right. So we're keying on the email. There's many security awareness programs you can take, but we're keying on the email because that is the biggest issue that we have where malware can come in. Browsing habits are another educational opportunity that we sent out, safe web browsing habits. But with what happened with the city, we're refreshing phishing testing again. So with a new version of that, the employees will be able to see refreshed programming, refreshed videos on how to look for the latest ransomware.
We are talking with Perry Blanchard, Albany County Chief Information Officer, ransomware, and all kinds of other nastiness when it deals with computers and emails and the internet and everything we've come to rely on have been at the forefront, and so that's what we're talking about today. As you said, we are honing in and being very specific to emails. People get emails now not only on their computers, on their laptops, they get them on their iPads, they get them on their phones.
Correct.
What's the situation with being protected on your phone or on your other, any other devices that you're getting your email?
With the phones and Apple products, the threat is still there. Most of the attacks target Windows because Windows is obviously the largest operating system in the world. It's distributed throughout the world, and it's used for business throughout the world. So commonly, hackers will look for the holes within that operating system. Ransomware can still happen to those devices as well. So you need to take the same safeguards on your devices, Apple devices, Android devices, or even Windows devices, handheld, that you would take in your business.
So you practice the same good
Absolutely,
habits.
absolutely.
You know, it's interesting when some of the testing comes up, and it will say, you know, there's always something that cannot give you a virus as an attachment, and there's always like the extenders or whatever, and I never quite get something right when I'm actually taking a look at which one it is. But there are always new things to learn and new ways that that the bad guys are trying to get us. I'm going to guess that that's probably one of the biggest challenges to your job.
Correct. Educating the users, I think, has been probably the greatest step we've taken in the last year. We've got many good security products that we've purchased over the years and maintained through grant opportunities, et cetera. But then we realized the biggest threat was the user, uneducated users on what to do. We can take so many steps on the perimeter of our network to defend it, but that is the biggest area of concern.
And you probably,
I think it's been very successful.
You probably, you know, monitor the rest of the industry. When it comes to the businesses or entities our size, what's the average? What's the norm for people, you know, for appropriate compliance in terms of people, you know, 60% of people do well, 70% of people, that seems rather high, 30%. What's the average?
When we work with our provider, KnowBe4, they're expecting an average of less than 12%. So 12% being the people that are still clicking. Okay. Right now, we're about that average. So now they're saying we need to get to 8%.
So that's the dangerous part. The dangerous 12% people that are going to click on something.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. We started out over 40%.
Wow.
So that tells you how successful the training's been. Mm-hmm. And we've been maintaining that level for the last year. So now that it's been a year, they're hoping for better. We want to get that number down. Mm-hmm. And possibly with the latest training that we're going to release, it will get to that.
You know, how difficult, with your background and the things that the people that are in your department and talking to others in the industry, how difficult is it to stay on top of what could be all different kinds of things that the bad guys are coming up with?
The problem is, especially in government, you have a limited budget. You do the best with your budget that you can. So we don't have necessarily people specialized in security. Financial organizations, they will hire somebody and that's all they do. Chief security officers, security technicians. Mm-hmm. We can't do that. We have to wear many hats. So not only do we have to educate ourselves on security, we have to educate ourselves on the latest products, how to maintain the latest products, the newest technology. And so that's a challenge with a limited staff. Mm-hmm. I feel at Albany County we have a great staff, and I think we're blessed with that.
Mm-hmm. Is that probably one of the biggest changes that you've seen? You know, the technology itself has changed over the last 30 years. Correct. Our reliance on the internet, I mean, something that didn't really exist, right?
Absolutely.
Is the technology the biggest challenge? Is the fact that you know, everything is changing so quickly, or the fact that, you know, the human component of it all, the human variable, you never know what people are going to do. You know, even with getting down, if we were to get down to that 8%, which I know is the target of people who are going to still click on something they probably shouldn't. I mean, I'm sure there are occasionally those folks who, you know, normally wouldn't click, but something is going to get to
Correct.
them. I mean, what are the biggest challenges for you? Is it the human factor? Is it the technology changing? Is it the threat of security being breached?
It's all of that. Okay. So obviously the human factor, we talk about 8 to 12%. It's that 8 to 12% that is going to get you infected. Mm-hmm. A lot of the malware gets blocked before it comes in, but the bad guys are getting better. So when we learn to block something, they do something that might even target specific people in Albany County. They might target our financial people. Mm-hmm. So we may spend 2 days just fighting off an attack on a department, and we've seen that.
And how do you do that? When you say fight off, what do you? I mean,
we start with email. It usually starts with that. So our email technicians will have to write their own rules to stop malware. We'll see something come in that doesn't look right. We're notified, or the user notifies us that it does not look right, and we realize we're being targeted.
Okay.
It's not just a general malware scam. And then we'll spend a day maybe with the support of our provider and try to write rules to stop it.
Well, we've been talking about large scale. We've been talking about businesses, but let's spend the last couple of minutes that we have talking about the folks that are at home,
Right.
That are on their computers, that may know what the rules are, but when you're at home on your computer, it's a little bit different because you don't have the safety of that, the security system of the protections that you would have sometimes at work, right? So if there's ransomware, does the ransomware come in and just take over your computer? Or would the ransomware does it actually take over your personal email account? What does it actually do?
Ransomware will encrypt anything that's attached to the computer that it can get to. So
you can't,
we're on a large scale.
If your email is open on your computer, you can't just go to another laptop then because it would be shut down.
It's going to shut down your computer. You'll have no
Is it going to
access
shut down
the computer.
your email? You can't go to another computer and access your email?
You would be able to access your email,
Okay.
absolutely. So it'll encrypt basically your hard drive,
Okay.
and if you've attached another drive to it, like an external USB
Sure,
drive or
sure.
a thumb drive, that'll get it encrypted as well.
Okay.
Anything that it can use your permissions for, it will encrypt. If you have something like a Dropbox or a OneDrive and it's attached by software to your computer, that could get encrypted as well.
Okay. Interesting. But you could conceivably, you can go, if it's web-based, you could go to another computer, still open your email.
Correct.
You cannot open any files that were on
Right.
your original computer. If you're an individual at home and this happens, there
What
is
to
no
do.
choice, right?
Right. So many of the same rules apply as they do on the larger scale. If it happens to you immediately, remove your computer from your network so that the bad guy can stop talking to your workstation, but you also don't want to infect anything that's else is on your home network. Everything has some sort of a hard drive on your
Yeah.
network. So if you have access throughout it, it could get to those too, so immediately remove that. All right.
Okay. And I know you can't say, yes, you have to pay, but if you have important stuff on there, would you recommend bringing your computer, making some calls to a specialist, or is it really a matter of just biting the bullet? I mean, how do you
Biting the
know that
bullet.
you're going to pay this and you're going to get access again?
The same rule applies as to your work network. I would say have backups of your own data. External drives, USB drives, back up your data and unattach it. If you use cloud-hosted backups, make sure you unattach from that as well.
Okay.
And that way, you don't have to pay the ransom, you restore your operating system, and you can bring back your data.
How safe is the cloud?
The cloud is...
In 20 seconds, how safe is the
The
cloud?
cloud is safe if you have very good credentials. Use good passwords, change your passwords often.
Okay.
Strong passwords.
Is that something that governments generally, are they looking at the cloud as backups?
Yes, the government typically has special rules. So say if you're using Microsoft or Amazon Cloud, they have special rules for us to do business with them. Mainly they have to be hosted in the United States. You have to have certain levels of security. The data can only remain within the United States for us to use them.
Right.
So even our Office 365
Yep.
is a government cloud portal.
So your best advice to anyone and everyone these days, back everything up and be safe.
Educate yourself, just like we educate our employees. There's great websites out there for anti-phishing and security awareness that are free. www.antiphishing.org is one of them. Same thing, patch your system, use a good antivirus program, use a firewall, back up your data, patch your applications as well. It's not just patching Windows, but patch your web browsers, patch any application that you use. They can have vulnerabilities in them as well.
All right. Well, thank you, Perry. A lot
You're
a lot to talk about and think about, but very serious stuff.
Absolutely. Thank you.
We're talking with Perry Blanchard, the Chief Information Officer for Albany County. I'm Mary Rozak, the Director of Communications for Albany County. This has been Albany County News. We'll see you again soon.